Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Jason Todd. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting. We're so grateful to have you here today. You're joining me. I was on your wonderful podcast not too long ago, Coffee with Humans, which I love because I love coffee. Drink way too much of it. But we're going to talk about the importance of connection more than ever with the COVID thing. People are feeling a little bit more, disconnected from each other. And what I love about Coffee with Humans is it doesn't have to be a podcast where you're trying to sell something. Even if you are a business owner, it could just be a place online through podcasting to connect with other humans and just have that human connection going. Share with the audience how you came to creating Coffee with Humans.
Yeah, so I agree with you. There is this point of connection without sales, which I think is so important. And sometimes that's used well to good effect, and I think sometimes it's used poorly. I launched Coffee with Humans in April of 2020, right as COVID was just kind of kicking off. And there was this paradigm shift with folks that I think fear was increasing, right? And disconnection was increasing. It was startling, I would say, to people, because not only are they not seeing the people around work, but they're also not getting out, to visit their friends and going to restaurants and things. And so it felt to me as though a feeling of maybe even despair was setting in. And I put simply a note out there, and I said, in fact, I've got a picture of it. I'll do a blog post about it soon. It's a little picture. It says, I'm going to have 52 coffees with people this year. This is my new goal. If you'd like to have coffee with me, I'll have coffee with you. The only rule is no sales calls. And then in response to that post, a handful of people said, I'll have coffee with you. And it kicked it off. And now I think I'm up to 117 coffee calls. And it is now January of 2021. So I have 3 more months to go to get my 52 coffee calls in. And it's interesting to me that this idea of connection and this void that people feel in real true connection, where there's no ulterior motive. We're just going to connect and have a chat about something that I feel is important to me and something that feels important to you.
Yeah.
It is a need in all of us.
Yeah.
And I think COVID really just amplified that, because it got rid of the other noise that we thought was connection. And now it's like, I'm not feeling like I'm connected to anybody.
And that's something, Jason, and we were talking before the interview, all of these modern gadgets, technology, and we were just talking about how you're like, noise everywhere from all different directions. And at the end of it, if you take it all away, who you connected with. And one guy said to me, hey, if you knew like 5 friends you knew you can count on, like for death, like they're there for you, man. Who are they? And he had asked some people, and most people couldn't even list 5 people on one hand.
Yeah.
And that's sad, because you think, hey, we're so connected, but are we really connected? And what is your take on us getting more connected? Because it is harder when you're told, hey, 6 feet apart, mask it up, don't go outside. It's harder to keep connected with your fellow humans out there. It
is. And this idea that we are connected because we can communicate, is the two are not the same, right? The communication, ability to communicate is at a greater availability than ever. Like I think you're in Texas and I'm in Illinois. And I think last week, I had a coffee call with somebody in in fact, it was earlier this week. I had a coffee call with a guy in Australia. Our ability to communicate is unprecedented. However, our challenge is not the ability to communicate; it's the ability to be open and connect. And that's, I think John Maxwell wrote a book, said something like, few all communicate, few connect, something like that. Because this idea of real, true connection is rare. We know it when it happens, for sure. And we go, oh my God, this person got me like nobody else has got me. Like, I feel this true connection with this person. It's so rare that it's remarkable, which with 8 billion people on the planet and thousands of people that you will meet in any given year of new, fresh faces, it's a shame really that true connection is so remarkable. It begins with us as an individual. Am I even open to to being connected.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm open to being connected, I might make it safe enough for you to connect.
Now, explain. You mentioned something interesting. It starts with you being open to connect with others. And do you think that people become less trusting and scared to connect? Like, what is causing that?
Everyone's scared to connect. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. To varying degrees. Mm-hmm. So for instance, if you're an outgoing person and you just like to be the life of the party, that person might be afraid to connect because what if I'm not the life of the party because I'm actually dealing with something really painful inside? I don't even want to look at it. I don't even want you to see it, because if I'm the life of the party, what happens when I'm not? Am I still okay? Do you still like me? Or today I had a coffee call with a gentleman who's dealt with suicide twice. He's a 2-time suicide survivor. And I shared with him a moment when I had a friend who had tried to complete suicide, and my friend was in the hospital, and I drove back and forth outside that hospital to my job for 2 weeks, thinking I should check in on him. I was like, yeah, but I haven't seen him in a decade, and would he even care? Like, what is he going to think of me, and all sorts of stuff. And I was just scared to put myself into that situation, a situation I knew nothing about, and I thought they might perceive me poorly. When in fact, that individual was at their lowest point, just waiting, hoping that someone was going to be able to be there with them, right? And it is that point of vulnerability, whether it's that the person who's the life of the party, what happens when they're not, or it's me who's driving back and forth and like I'm just going to show up randomly because this person needs a friend, but like what are they going to think of me? It's that vulnerability about me. It's always about us individually that keeps us from being connected.
Yeah. And it sounds to me that vulnerability is the key. People are kind of pushing against the possibility of being vulnerable. And what does that mean for them if they are? Will they be rejected? Will it be painful?
Absolutely. And it plays out not just in our personal lives. We can paint this idea that it's our personal lives and it's our personal relationships, our husbands or wives or boyfriends or girlfriends or our family members. That's how somehow we need to be vulnerable. But we take these practices into our workplace. Whoever we have chosen to be at home is probably kind of who we're choosing to be at the workplace. And so if we are afraid to just be raw and open with people in our workplace, that creates dysfunction as well. The case in point would be now that we're all on Zoom calls, right? I mean, you and we're on a Zoom call, right?
Yeah.
But Zoom calls at again, an unprecedented level around the world, people are just communicating digitally. And you might have seen these calls where all of a sudden like a cat like boop, boop, jumps on somebody in the middle of a Zoom call, right? Or a child, like there's somebody off camera, like, oh my God, there's a kid. And this kind of stuff has always been happening, but we were afraid to show that. We were afraid to show our real lives to a person who we work with, who we call a peer, and we think they care about us. We're afraid to show reality to somebody on the other side of the camera because somehow we're not capable at our jobs. Just because I got my daughter hanging over in the other room and she's like asking how to Swiffer the floor. This actually happened the other day. I was going to go on a coffee call and she's asking me how to Swiffer the floor. And I'm like, hey, kid, figure it out. You're 14. You can figure out a Swiffer, right? Well, normally we'd be like, what do I do? Can I say even have a daughter in the house? I got a Zoom call. Like, what do I do? We become locked up in our heads, and we tend, I think, to shut one of them down. We either shut down the daughter and say, hey, Dad's working, stay in your place, basically. Or, hey, work, stay in your place. I'm going to be the family guy. Right. Yeah. When really we are a blend of all these things and looking holistically at each other. If you wipe away the facade of workplace and all this other stuff, we're just humans. And I got a lot of shit going on. And it might all coincide right now as I'm on this Zoom call. And so it's like, hey guys, 1 second. I know we're in the middle of this deep negotiation. However, yeah, babe, why don't you just put that thing over there? Sounds good. Thanks. Apologize for that. What about point A? Right. Yeah. We ought to be able, I think, to be a little bit more comfortable with being in those environments. And I get it. That might be a little bit of broad brush, but the principle remains the same. If we're not vulnerable, that we are holistic people, and sometimes we got stuff going on and we need to deal with each other in that space. If I'm not willing to deal with my own stuff and be okay with you, like not liking me just because I'm a holistic being, like, of course you're going to be afraid that I'd never deal with you because I'm not showing that I'm okay to deal with me.
I love that, Jay, because it's interesting. I've had a number of calls like that, and I'm actually doing business from home, having a lot of Zoom calls business wise. And it's funny. And we've all gotten to see the whole new universe of each of my associates at home. During Christmas, they walked around their camera and their laptops around their house to show the Christmas tree. So we all got to see our Christmas tree. When will we get to do this in the past? This is so cool. And, my dog often likes to chat in the middle of our calls. But now, people are like, so how's Henry doing, my dog? But it's so great. That the idea that people say be authentic, whatever. Well, it's called being real, like real human beings. And one of the things I think that got by the wayside with social media and all of these things is they've created a facade of this fake person that you get to put out there. They ain't really you. And they were all kind of being the facade and not being our real selves.
Yeah. And that's where we get to this idea of ulterior motive. So a lot of times social media is out there because I'm unhappy in my everyday life, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the best out there on social media. Why? So you can all digitally clap for it by clicking like. Yeah. And if you're digitally clapping for me, then I can at least feel good in some space of my life. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of people use that social media that way. Yeah. And then people started saying, hey, it's okay for you to just not be okay. And now now it's like, okay, here's everything, here's sharing all this stuff. And I think people find their way in this, right? So I've got a friend who he would go on anniversaries, and God bless him. He's kind of in that age range where it's like, share everything on social media. He'd go on anniversaries and he'd be like taking a picture of their dinner. I'm like, okay, an older, wiser man would be like, don't do that, dude. Like, why don't you just take care of your wife in that moment and don't invite us all to the party? Yeah, we don't. Right? Because it protect that space. There are times when you need to protect the space. Got it. Right? Because that space deserves, it's a sacred moment. That space deserves its own time. Yeah. Don't share it all out there. But what is the motivation in that moment? And that's where we just need to be cognizant of what are you trying, what am I trying to get at by posting the thing I'm posting? And I think also being, giving grace to other people, he'll figure it out. He'll stop posting that when his wife's like, hey, dude, would you stop?
Put down the phone. But, it's interesting, Jason, that hits for me. And I got into this probably more than 10, 15 years ago, the whole reality show thing. Which we're all like, and I was into, I was watching ballroom dancing and I'm watching this reality show and that reality show. And we're getting and someone said to me, they're all not reality show. They cut and paste those puppies. But we got into this idea, and then we had the YouTube, which basically when it got started was YouTube. You were tubing yourself and making your own show. And then people just took it to a whole new level. Like, everyone needs to see me turning on makeup and eating this cookie and going here. Right. And to the point where, we don't really care. You don't need to share every bit of your life. And it gets to the point like, why are you doing this? And C.K. Lewis, a comedian I like, actually did a whole skit on the social media and how people use the platform to kind of build that sense of purpose and happiness. Like, oh, I got a whole bunch of likes today. And then when you don't, what? He said, remember the old days when you just pull over on the side of the road and just bawl because you were upset? Now you're looking for Facebook, Twitter, whatever to give you the validation and the... Yeah.
We've I think in this need for connection with an inauthentic communication, because that's what we've got. We have a true need for deep connection where we could sit for 4 hours in a car ride with one another. Mm-hmm. And yet we have this facade of connection, which is really just a volume of communication through these other channels. Mm-hmm. It is that gap that still makes us afraid to connect.
Interesting.
We are still afraid that if this person were to sit in a car ride with me for 4 hours, like, would we be okay?
Yeah. Or would be
right? Yeah. Would they want to throw me out? Would I want to throw them out? Would I like, oh my God, please don't put them in a car ride with me for 4 hours. And
interesting about that. So what if you didn't like each other at the end? There was a wonderful Frasier episode, one of my absolute favorite shows, and there was an episode where there's this gal and him trying to get together. And they just can't seem to connect and go on that date. And they keep rearranging it. And for some reason, he keeps bailing on the date. Something happens. And she keeps saying, you're totally messing with me. A car broke down. He's like, yeah, sure. Then next time his Swiss watch broke. She's like, and then he's like, please give me one more chance. So finally, at the end, he wants to see her so bad. She's like, I'm sorry. I'm going on like a 2-month trip somewhere. And she's like, let me take you there. It's a 4-hour trip. I will drive you there because that's how much I want to spend time with you. So they finally have that so-called date, and he gets her in the car, packs her up, and they're starting to drive. And then she's like, he said, oh, I'm really part of this, la, la, la. She actually finds out she's part of this cult thing. And she's like, have you heard about this cult? And then, he's listening there like, oh no, but I'm about to. And so, the next 4 hours are torture as she shares her cult with him.
Yeah.
And so probably they didn't go on another date, but he was really wanting that connection so bad that he made it happen. But I love that fact. So what? At the end of the car ride, it didn't work out.
Yeah, whatever. You got to know somebody else. And I think all too often now, we cannot escape the need for true connection, but we exchange that idea of true connection for a falsehood. Yeah. And then we wonder why we come away a little bit empty and we still feel alone. How could you be alone and still have millions of followers? Exactly. That's the big question. And the truth of it is well, they don't actually know you. They actually just care about all the stuff you keep posting. But what if that's not really you? That's the disconnection. It's like, oh, that's not me. I'm still not okay with me. It's a never ending pit of wanting somebody else to fill up that the hole in our hearts to go, am I still okay? That's what we're after. And that's what true connection can give you. Like, yeah, I know you're a nut job, but I love you. Right. Those are our best friends. Right. That can say that to us, but it's all the other people online. It's like, if you really knew me, you might actually unlike me. And then what? And I know how shallow it was when you clicked like, and now I know how shallow I'm going to feel when you click unlike. So like it's a need. True connection is absolute need. I've experienced with Coffee with Humans. It's got tremendous pull through. People just wanting to have a conversation. And the only rule I put on there is no sales calls. It's one person asked me, have you ever had a sales call? And I said, nobody's tested me on it. I had one guy who argued with me about what a sales call was. And it's like, great, fine. We can talk about anything. Like, bring your sales call. Yeah. But I will always push, and I have a gift. And I believe that when we set aside this time, a sacred moment to connect, like we can really great things can come of that. And I expect those things all the time. Yeah. And I continually look for those things. And when some people don't even know that's what they're looking for, I'm looking for it. And it's the one, I mean, if I'm good at anything in the world, it's probably knowing when there's something more, and we're just going to keep pushing for it until we find it, because that's the only way that real life change is going to happen.
Yeah. And you've really lined up for people the power of how we can use these technologies in a way that is helpful and really connecting to us. And, in the years that people have called me, oh, show me how to use this podcasting thing so I can make money or for my business. It doesn't have to be for that. Like you just did with Coffee with Humans. It could just be connecting to other humans. You could just do that Zoom call, do that Skype thing where you're just connecting with people. And yeah, absolutely. And I'd love that.
Every good thing that has ever happened on the planet is because two people got together.
Yeah. You can't
every single thing.
Yeah. Every
single thing. And if you think it that way, it's like, oh, interesting. Well, I guess I should just go off and meet some more people.
Exactly. And it also allows you to get away from the everyday humdrum of I got to do the work, I got to do, pick up the kids. It allows you just to connect with other humans and just be yourself. Totally.
Yeah. And I do all my Coffee with Humans calls virtually, and I do it because there was COVID happening around the world. But then it's also, it gives me a platform to talk with people literally around the world. And so I learn about new cultures, which I really very much appreciate.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward, the future of this is that I'm looking forward to getting into actual coffee shops around the world. And I'll set up and I'll say, hey, here I am in such and such a place and talking with so-and-so to transport people to transport people to places that they aren't going themselves and may never get to. And also open up a conversation with somebody who you never would have heard of, you never would have met, who lives a very important life. They're one of almost 8 billion people on the planet. And however, their life is 100% valuable. That's the key. 8 billion people are 100% valuable, but one person's 100% valuable as well. And you should know them. If you had an opportunity, get to know them. And that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Do you know, Jason, there's this show on YouTube called Bald and Bankrupt. Have you heard of him?
No. Are you calling me bald and bankrupt?
No, not you. But he's bald and bankrupt, or he was. And interestingly, he was, I guess, bankrupt, and he is bald. Yeah. He decided to create this channel. He loves Russia. His actually ex-wife is from Russia. His heritage is Russian, even though he was born in the UK and living in the UK. And he's decided to travel through Ukraine and all these teeny little villages that, you know, if I were to go visit Russia, I would never go to because they're remote. I'd probably, you know, end up starving to death on the side of the road and get lost. But he just wings it. He just, you know, what do you call it when you get a hitchhike and you know, whatever. He just gets random strangers to pick him up. He goes all over Russia, Ukraine, and and now he's even gone to China, remote places of China and India. And you just get to meet everyday people. And
well, it's interesting I'm going to surely check out his show. Mm-hmm. It's interesting when you get to other cultures, they don't have the inherent fear of other people as we've built up in the United States. As for the volume of communication that we have and the availability of communication, and we really do have a lack of connectedness, and we are deathly afraid of each other. Mm-hmm. And that is something that not everybody else on the planet shares.
It's true.
They will absolutely pick you up. They expect no harm from you. They will invite you into their home. You are their family that night. That sort of connectedness is what every single one of us longs for. We hope for. We have a terrible time creating, and we are deathly afraid of leading the charge on that.
Yeah.
And
you're right.
But we all want it, and we go, and again, it's remarkable. You're like, I can't believe you can do it. You absolutely can, and you absolutely should.
Yeah, you should. And you could do it right here in the United States. You don't need to go to some far away land. If anything, his channel, for one, showed me that humans are not that different. They're all wonderful beings. They express themselves a little differently. You know, seeing these babushkas and, you know, this remote village, inviting them in for homemade wine. I'm like, oh my God, it's so cool. But I almost feel like I'm sitting there having homemade wine with them, even though I'm not. But it's just fabulous. And so, you know, we can go out there, go create those connections today with other humans. And where can they go listen to your fun Coffee with Humans, Jason?
Absolutely. Go to coffeewithhumans.com. There are links on there to all the places where it streams: YouTube, Google, podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Twitch now, LinkedIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it. You can get all at coffeewithhumans.com.
That's awesome. And when this goes live, I'm going to send you a copy for your record. You can put it on up there with the Coffee with Humans if you want. And it's been fabulous chatting with you, connecting with you again. It was fabulous on your show. And I thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with our savvy audience. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.